Hi everyone, welcome to the video. It's been a little while since I've made any content, so I thought it was about time I got my butt in gear and made something. So for this video, this is a front end that I've not covered before. This is EmulationStation Desktop Edition, and more specifically the version for Android, which was released recently, probably a few weeks ago now, maybe a bit more. But basically, for those that don't know, you've got obviously other front ends, things like you've got your Batasura, which is obviously EmulationStation running sort of on top of its own Linux OS, and then you've got things like RetroArch, which is using EmulationStation as the graphical front end, but runs on Windows. This again is using EmulationStation, but it's Emulation front end edition, so it's kind of EmulationStation plus some pre-configuration to help you along the way. So like I say, all those systems are quite common in the fact that they use EmulationStation as that kind of graphical front end, the bit you see and drive when you're browsing your games. But for this one, also like I say, EmulationStation's been around for a while, and it's been obviously on Windows, and obviously it's been using Raspberry Pi quite a lot with RetroPie. You'll probably know it first from there. But yeah, like I say, recently it came to Android, which is quite exciting for those that are into this kind of thing. It's been a while, so I thought I'd make a quick video on how to install it, get up and running, basically just take you through it. So what I'm going to do first is go through the install and show how to set it all up. But one of the key things is that obviously you get some front ends for Android, something like RetroArch, where that's all pre-configured for you. The emulators are included; they're kind of pre-configured, optimized. You go and play a game, it will say, oh, you need Emulator X, it will download it for you, install. You don't need to do anything. Whereas ones like this and things like Launchbox, etc. for Android, they're the front end and they launch the emulator, but you have to make sure that you've installed the emulator first and you configured it and it's all working, which again is the case here. So what I'm going to do is quickly go through and install or set up RetroArch. So if you've even looked at emulation, even in the slightest amount, you've probably heard of RetroArch already. It's one of the main or more popular emulators. And when I say emulator, this is actually a collection of emulators. So it's kind of almost front end in itself, that you launch the app either on it's on Windows, on Mac, on Linux, on Android. It's it's on pretty much every platform. And it kind of gives you that kind of more of a basic front end, if you like, but very customizable, loads of options in there, and then it has the idea of cores. So basically, a core is an emulator, so it'll have a core for arcade machines, a core for PlayStation, a core for Nintendo systems. It's got I think it's well over 100 cores now. So yeah, it's kind of that one-stop shop for emulation, obviously, and it's what people probably use for majority of systems. If you're emulating some of the more modern systems, more high power recent consoles, you probably wouldn't use RetroArch. Things like PS3, for example, I don't think they've got a core for that yet in RetroArch, so you'd use the RPCS3 emulator, which is probably the most common, if not the only sort of Windows-based emulator for PS3. It's the go-to. So for most of the case, like 80% of the time, you'd probably stick with RetroArch. So that's what we're going to do here. We're going to install this, and obviously going forward, once you've got this up and running, if you wanted to install a separate standalone emulator, you can configure the front end to use whatever emulator you want, really. But we're going to keep it simple. We're going to make sure that we can at least run some systems. So like I say, for Android, it's probably easy to get it off the Google Play Store. So if you come down here, do a search for RetroArch on your store. The only thing to note really is there's two versions on this. So there's RetroArch, which you might want to grab. But if you look down here, there's actually one called RetroArch Plus, and then what this is it's the same, but it supports, you need Android 8 or higher, whereas the other one I think goes back to maybe Android version 4. I might be right, 4 or 5. Whereas this one basically needs a newer device, Android 8 or later, and because of that, it supports a lot more cores, so a lot more emulators. In this case, 127, whereas the regular one, the one that's in the Play Store, just called RetroArch, supports about 50. So if you've got a newer device, I'd recommend going for RetroArch Plus, just so you're going to get more cores. And obviously, if you can do this manually, depending on what system you've got, you might not have the Play Store on there on your Android device. Unlikely, but it might be. And if you want to do that, you can also go to RetroArch website. So I'll go back a couple of steps. So go retroarch.com, go to download. Obviously, just check this because mine's detected I'm on Windows and is auto-detected Windows for me to download. But if I scroll down a little bit further, like I say, here's all the platforms you can do RetroArch or install RetroArch on. All the Windows, Linux, Raspberry Pis. And then under Android, you see you can get it on the Amazon store, Huawei, Galaxy, and Google. But then also down here are the kind of direct, 32-bit version, 64-bit version. You can download the APK file to download manually. And yeah, like I say, there's lots of other different versions here. If you've got a Xbox in development mode, you can install it on there as well. So lots of cool stuff you can do. And again, if you've got a modded PlayStation 2, 3 or PSP or Vita, you can install it on there as well to do emulation on the handheld. And the same again, if you've got modded versions of these consoles, you can do all that. But anyway, we're concentrating on Android, so either grab it manually here, the APK, and install it, or go via the Play Store. So then you'll get RetroArch up and running. I'm actually recording this video on Windows box. It's Windows 11, and it's got the what they call the Windows subsystem for Android, which basically means you can run Android apps on Windows, which is quite handy for this, for recording. I have tried it to play some games, some emulation stuff on it, and it works okay. It's probably much better doing it on an actual Android device than on here, but this is good for demoing. So presumably you've got RetroArch installed. Here's kind of what it looks like when you first fire it up. When it first fires up, you probably will get some messages about extracting some files, and it's kind of basically just installing itself, extracting some of the content. And then the only thing really I do when I first installed it is come down to this online updater, and then if some options here to basically update some core information files, so update the latest set of information, or the latest cores available. Assets is kind of like sort of these icons, bits and pieces here, and other stuff. And then there's controller profile. So the idea with RetroArch is if it detects your controller and auto sets it up for you, so it's always good idea to have the best or the latest profiles downloaded. You can download cheats, so there's like a cheats database for different platforms that you can enable cheats in games, like unlimited lives or take no damage, that kind of stuff. But I tend to come in here and just tap on that to download, and then the assets as well, and you'll see it downloads as a zip file at the bottom there, and then extracts it. So I do that for each of these here, just to make sure I'm up to date. You probably don't need to do it, but it's a habit I've got into, of just click on each one of these to make sure I'm up to date. So that's pretty much what you need to do for RetroArch. So I can minimize this out of the way for a minute, or even close it. I think I'll just close without breaking it. Now I've broken it, made it unhappy. So anyway, so RetroArch is installed. We've got that running ready. So like I say, EmulationStation desktop edition is what we're looking at. And so when this was originally released for Android, they had it available on the Amazon App Store. They were kind of trying to get it onto the Google Play Store, but I think Google were kind of pushing back because it was emulation. There's still kind of a bit of a stigma, and they don't want to encourage piracy and all that kind of stuff, which is ongoing argument. And as it turns out, it never got into Google Play Store, and Amazon as well turned around and took it off the Play Store. So what they've done now is they've made it available directly, so you can come here and download it. And the idea is that they have a Patreon site. If you've heard this before, this is basically a system where you can donate to developers and support them. The one-off payment or like a small monthly payment, basically to fund them, to fund their work and encourage them to carry on. So that's what you do. You basically come across their Patreon site, and then you decide you can join, and then there's membership levels. So £4.50 or some in the UK plus VAT per month. And just to know, obviously there's other versions or other options, amounts you can pay. But just to mention here, you don't have to pay every month. You sign up once, and then if you want to, it says here not a subscription, you can then pay once and then cancel it. So you pay once, get the APK, and then it says you will then get further updates as well. You don't have to be a monthly subscriber to get the updates. Once even if you pay once, you will get updates, which is it's good. But obviously, if you want to help the developer and support them, then you you can still choose to pay monthly and have an ongoing monthly payment. Completely up to you, but you do that and you join. Once you've joined there, you'll get a link to the APK and download it. So much like any other app, you can then sideload it. And what I do normally, I use this file manager, this file explorer for Android called Explore, which you'll find again in the Play Store, and it's really handy. So it's a basic 2-pane view. I've got the APK here, and then to install it, literally just click on it and install. I have run the install already, but like I say, it's pretty straightforward. You might get a pop-up saying that your system needs to allow Explore to install from unknown sources. Just allow that. It's basically saying that out the box, Android only likes to install applications from the Play Store. You can install an APK directly, but it'll you need to tick a box to say yes, allow it first. So you go for this and run the normal install with any APK. Once it's finished, you click done. So then you're ready to launch it for the first time. So this is hopefully what I'm going to do now, if it all works. Obviously, like I say, we're running inside effectively an emulator on Windows to run this. So let's see what happens. Hopefully it'll be okay. So basically, you launch it for the first time. You get the kind of setup wizard, initial welcome. So just click this, and pretty much just say standard with pretty much all applications that need to write something. It needs permissions to access your storage, so it can actually read your game files, download artwork, all that kind of stuff, and basically set itself up. So if we click on here, it's going to say this application wants access to manage your files. So yep, we trust it, we know what it is, we're fine with that, and then we go back. And now we select a directory where everything's going to be stored. So this is, as it says here, the settings, the game list when you've added them, if you scrape artwork for the games, so things like the box artwork and the screenshot of the gameplay, that kind of stuff. So you select somewhere for this to go, and that can be pretty much wherever you want. So by default, on the root of your storage, it's going to create a folder called ESDS. So I'm just going to set the default on that, but you can put it wherever you want. And again, it's going to ask this permission piece. So we allow this app to access this folder. Oh, yeah, we need to. Now you need to pick a directory of where you're actually going to keep your ROMs. An important note here: you do need to add at least one game, otherwise it won't start. It won't let itself start with no games. For whatever reason, that's fair enough. I guess if there's no games, there's nothing to display, so how can it run? But anyway, so we click on select directory, and again, by default, it looks on the root of your storage folder called ROMs. So that's fine for me for this demo. So allow that, and then you've got this one to create system directory. So inside that ROMs folder it's just created, what it do, obviously it supports a whole bunch of systems. I think it's well over 100. What it can do for you is create basically an empty folder under ROMs. So ROMs / PSX for PlayStation, NES for Nintendo, SNES for Super Nintendo, etc, etc. Create all those, and inside what it'll do, it'll create this little text file, and that's a very useful text file. Basically, from that you can see what emulators it can launch your games in. And in our case, it'll be what core in RetroArch it will use to play a particular system. Because then one of the things you need to make sure is, obviously, before you try and launch any games through here, you need to make sure RetroArch is installed, but also that RetroArch has that core installed. Because again, if you try to launch, say, a Mega Drive game and it's looking for a certain core to play it, if that core is not there and available in RetroArch, it'll just, I think, either error or just get a black screen, because obviously it can't find the core. So, but we'll come to that piece. So I'd always recommend yes to this, to go and create that folder structure. And again, it does remind you here that ESDS is installed, but you do need to install your emulators separately. And then with some of the emulators, you need to make sure that they've got access to the folder where you keep the permissions. I don't believe this is an issue with RetroArch, but if you've got another standalone emulator, for example, say you've got SSPP for the PSP as a standalone app, because generally, my personal opinion, I find that performs better than the PSP core side of RetroArch. But again, so if you've got your PSP ROMs inside that ROMs folder in a subfolder called PSP, you need to make sure that the PSP standalone emulator has access to that folder, and the best way to do that is to launch the PSP emulator. Click on add games, point at that folder, give it permissions, and make sure that those games appear in PSP emulator, and make sure that looks okay. You can then close that and then configure it within ESDS. No, sorry, ESDE. So anyway, kind of skipping ahead there, but kind of explaining what all this means. So I would say, yep, okay, we understand that. So it's creating those folders for me. It's going to look for games, but obviously, so it launches, but there's nothing to say. It just says, I've got no games. I'm looking here for games, but that's it pretty much. So you either go and create directions, which we've just done, or you quit. So we're going to quit out quickly using that. So again, if we bring up the File Explorer, so if I come down this list, my root my storage, see I've got this ROMs folder now, and you can see just from here it's created 139 folders. So there's currently 139 systems to support, so quite a lot. So I don't know, quite a straightforward one. I know that works well within RetroArch is something like Mega Drive. Obviously, depending on where you are in the world, you might know it's Genesis. But if we look inside here, like I say, we've got a single text file, and that gives a system name, a full name. These are the extensions of your ROM files that it will look for and understand. And then to launch it, like I say, it will launch here. You can see it launches RetroArch, and it will look for, and this is the name of the core. So you see here you've got Genesis _plus_GX. So that is the name of the core that you need available inside RetroArch. So this is a very good way of doing that. And obviously that's the default one it will look for. And for I think most systems it'll have an alternative. So that's kind of the default one. It'll also use the Genesis Plus GX wide core, and I think that just runs it, but runs it in sort of a widescreen aspect ratio. It'll also support the Pico drive core. If you prefer using that, you can use that. And obviously it might be one for an advanced video, but I think you can edit these, and there is a way to add your own ones in. So if you don't like any of those three cores, you could add another core in, or a standalone emulator into this text file, and it'll tell you how to launch it. Although, I think this text file might be just some information rather than actually using it to launch. I think you'll find the actual where it launches games is in a separate location. So ignore what I said, but I'm pretty sure there is a way of doing that, of kind of adding custom systems. But again, that's a bit more advanced, and we'll come to that probably in a separate video. So anyway, this is handy to get things up and running, and know which core you need. So for this demo, I'm going to make sure that this core is available in RetroArch. So I know I did close it rather unceremoniously, and I think it got me upset with that. So I'll hopefully it launches okay. Well, if I click in the right place. So let's find our RetroArch. Went past it, didn't I? There it is. Okay. So we'll go back. I'm going to go to online updater. Oh, see, it's responding to mouse, so it's a little bit tricky. I might use the keyboard. There we go. So core downloader. Basically, this is download your cores or download your emulators. And here's the big old list. See, there's like I say, 127 cores in this version. So if I scroll down this list, and the one we're looking for, oh, that's my fault. We're holding the key down. And so they're all sorted by the name of the manufacturer. So Sega are all down here. So there's the two we were looking at before, but the three actually. Oh, I'll stop touching the mouse. So we've got the Genesis Plus GX wide at the top. The one we've got highlighted is the Genesis Plus GX, which is the default one, and just below that is the Pico drive one, which is another optional one you could use. But we're going to install this one. So just hit enter OK, so enter, and it'll install it. And there we go, quick as that. And now you've got the little hash on the right hand side here. I can do it without moving the mouse too much. You can see the hash kind of just there, just to denote that it's installed, so you can actually see which ones are installed, which ones aren't. So that should be RetroArch ready. So if I go back, all the keys, escape. I'm not quite sure why I got that RetroArch window there. That might be because I force closed it. But anyway, so we've got the text file, tells us which core we needed, we've done that. So now, under Mega Drive, if we copy some games, and if... See, that's the good thing about this Explorer, I can browse to a Windows share on my PC. And I can't remember whether I put any games in here. So let me just have a quick look. Okay, quick bit of copying in the background. So now in this folder on my Windows PC that I've shared out, I've got this Mega Drive folder with roughly 101 games. So again, in here, obviously your files are probably different, or the way you browse your files, but for here I can tick in and tick just the contents of the folder, and here's what I've got selected on the right hand side, so I know if I click copy it's going to copy from here to here. So just hit copy, okay, and that's just copying it, and these are all .md files. So there we go, they've all copied into there. So now I can get rid of this. Move that. I don't know why that is. Yeah, RetroArch didn't close properly for some reason, but that's the slight oddity of using all Windows, I guess. So now we should be ready. So if we launch ESDS again, should find some games this time. And there we go, found a Mega Drive. These on-screen displays, on-screen touch interface stay there, and if you don't do anything, they time out. So that's obviously if you use this on a tablet or a phone, you can use touchscreen. If you've got it on a TV box like the NVIDIA Shield, you'll have a game controller. You'll use that, and you can turn them off. So if it enters to go in, you can see all the games are here found. There's no artwork or anything yet, we haven't scraped that, but that'd be the next step. Now I need to try and find out what the menu key is, trying to use it through Windows. See the controller's plugged in. There we go. So I do have an Xbox controller plugged in here, so just the start button brings up the menu. So what we probably want to do is, like I say, it launches and you get this default theme, but one of the things I like to do is quite often change the theme. Actually, no, where it is, where we're looking, UI settings, sorry. Go to UI settings, so user interface. Here's the current theme. If I go to theme downloader, you can download some. And actually gives you a little screenshot, I believe, of all different themes. We'll grab one quickly so you can see. So you can see here, it looks much nicer with a. This Arflix one is one I use quite often. It's just going to download the installers for us. Now if I go back and go down to theme, I've now got Artflix listed. I can click on that, click on back again to close, and there it's loaded. So yeah, in my opinion, much nicer interface. And now if we go to Mega Drive, again the layout's different, but obviously again there's no artwork yet. You need to scrape the artwork, but I guess we can check that a game actually launches. So there's a whole bunch of stuff in here. Let's find something like Sonic, why not? Of course it is right down the bottom of the list, but Sonic the Hedgehog. And just hit OK, launching. So this is where you need to make sure you've got RetroArch. There you go, see RetroArch launching. And there we go. The audio is a little bit choppy, but I'm doing it through a Windows Android app, so it's probably not the best performance. You run it on your phone or a TV box, it'll be much better. But just to show that it launches. So we've still got the touchscreen on, which we can turn off because we're using a controller. I'm sure there's a key combination somewhere to exit, which I'll have to check. But if we touch on the RetroArch icon there. We can go and pause and do bits and pieces. But I think what we're going to do is just close. Try and close. RetroArch. Oh, this is a little bit. The response is a bit slow. But anyway, close it and away you go. I think obviously that's a little bit clunky running on here. Like I say, again through the Windows machine, but running on your Android box, it should be a lot cleaner. Now, as I was saying, there's some options here to turn off those. Again, the touch of those turn off the touch interface overlay if you're using a device with a controller. So I believe it again. Is it UI settings? Keyboard, probably under input device settings. So it knows I'm using an Xbox controller. So you've got the touch overlay size and how see-through it is, and then if you toggle that, it's going to toggle off. So it just gives you a warning as well. So if you're turning off the touch overlay and you haven't got a controller, then you've got no way of getting back in. You think if you do, you've got your phone that's purely touch interface, and you turn off the touch interface, you've got no way of controlling it unless you plug in a controller or you connect a controller via Bluetooth or something to actually get in and turn it back on again. So we'll see now there's the touch interface overlay, the buttons is gone, so we can effectively using it on a TV box with a controller. I guess the other bit, if we go back into here, like I say, there's no artwork. I'm gonna make it look nice. You've got the scraper at the top. Screen scraper is the default, and I recommend leaving it on that. That works really well. And this is where you go through and tell it which systems to scrape. Obviously, we've only got one in there, but you could pick all or none. But we can do the one that we've got. So account settings. You need an account with Screen Scraper for this to work. It's free. You go on their website. I think it's screenscraper.fr. They're based in France. Create a free account. And with the free account, you get something silly like it's either 20,000 or 50,000 scrapes a day or something like that. So which is more than enough for most people. But again, with those, you can pay a small amount to donate and help support what they do. And then also, if you pay, you get more scrapes per day and more performance. You can get, rather than doing it, scraping one game at a time, you have what they call multiple threads. So you can basically have two threads, and you're scraping two games at the same time to make it a lot quicker. And obviously, it's good if you've got a massive collection. You want to scrape it. You might end up wanting to do a paid version, even for a short while, or you have the free version and scrape it. A couple of systems per day. A handful of systems per day or overnight, something like that. But anyway, I'm just going to pause the video here quickly while I type in my my credentials. Okay, that's done. Type those in quite easily. There's some other options here, which I don't think you really need to change. I clicked out the window. So content settings, you can turn off things not to download. I mean, I'd probably leave it all on. If storage is an issue, you could turn off game manuals. It downloads as PDFs for the ones it can find. You can turn those off. Also, quite a big one is videos. So it's like a sort of a 20-30 second clip of the game playing, so you can see what it looks like. But also, imagine if you've got a large collection and they're a couple of meg each, it's soon going to add up. I've got 100 odd games here. If it got video snaps for each one, you could say that could be roughly 200, 300, 400 meg. Which these days isn't much, but if you've got that for all systems, it's going to get into the gigs quite quickly, so you can turn that off. And I might just, actually no, I'll leave it on for now. Let's just leave everything turned on. The stuff around mix image, so this is the thing where you basically, it creates a single image of the artwork and the box artwork and the logo. I haven't really played with that. I'll just leave that as default. And there's some other settings in here about when you scrape, which region do you prefer. So obviously games are released globally, and you might want the artwork, the American artwork or the Japanese artwork for a particular game. I'm in UK, I leave mine on Europe, and obviously preferred language. And you get things like, there's an error, how many times to retry, and wait 3 seconds before you retry. So, but I mean, most of this stuff, I wouldn't touch. So when you're ready, go down to Start, and this is the scraping screen. So you can see it's going to go through now, just matching the games, and it shows on screen what it's found. So obviously it finds the artwork, it finds all the developer information, all that kind of stuff. So like I say, it's going to take a few minutes to run through this. So what I might do is I'll leave it for a second, scrape a couple of games. I don't really need to have it scrape all 100. Just have it scrape a few. Maybe we'll only get to 10. It's just to kind of show the interface and show, what difference it makes having the artwork. Like I say, all this artwork is downloading is going into that folder that we set before, which I might be able to quickly show you while it's doing it. So on the root of our storage we had the ROMs folder where all the games go, and then there's also an ESDS folder that it creates, and under there you've got all the other bits and pieces, all the settings, and there's a downloaded media folder. And see, we've now got a folder in there called Mega Drive. We go in there, these are all different types of information or artwork it downloads. So for 3D box covers, it's got 9 items in there already, and you can see it's starting to download the 3D boxes for those games. And then there's things like covers, which will be like the 2D version of that. Fan art is kind of like sort of the big full screen backdrop artwork. Also, not all games have this, but quite a few do. And like I said before, the manuals. So they see there's some PDFs going in here. Like Double Dragon there, 45 meg. I mean, but that one's 900k. So 45 meg for a manual is quite big. So like I say, this might be one of the ones you want to turn off if you want to save some space. Marquees is like the logos, transparent logos. But anyway, so it's scraping happily in the background. So what I might quickly do now is stop this. It should save its progress. Yep, it's done 9, so I can back out now. I'll come out and go back into the system again. Also, if I come back round to the A's, start the list. So you can see now they've got artwork in there. So they've got the nice logo on the right hand side, they've got the fan art in the background there, and obviously the box artwork on the left hand side. And as you scroll through, it's a lot nicer. So I don't think I'm sure I did download, or did I turn off videos? I might have turned off videos, because what it should do when you pause in the game after a few seconds, down here where you've got the artwork, it should play a little video clip. So let's just check that. I think I might have left it turned off. Is it content settings? No, video's on. Maybe it's just this. Theme doesn't show them, possibly. Anyway, you get the idea. Scraping the media gives you all the nice fancy artwork, makes it look nice. So that's kind of a basic. That's up and running now. Like I say, we've got Mega Drive added with RetroArch is configured or there, and it's got the core download, so it's going to work. So if you're going to add another system, it's just a case of repeating the process. So on my storage, if I come back to that ROMs folder, say we were going to add SNES now just for example, scroll all the way down this list. We have SNES there with the text file. Which is either taking a minute to load or was blank. Hopefully not blank. Okay, there for some reason. So again, Super Nintendo, here's all the extension file types that I support, and the default is also using RetroArch again and using the SNES 9X core. So if you're going to add them, all you need to do is get your games, which should be in one of these formats, copy them into this SNES folder, and then before you try and launch a game or do anything else, scroll down the list. So yeah, SNES 9X. So if I go to Online Updater, Core Downloader, Let's go down this big old list. Of course, I've picked all the ones that are down the bottom half of the of the alphabet. But again, just scroll down to the emulators defined in the text file. Also, this is kind of a one-time thing. Once you've got it set up, you shouldn't really need to touch RetroArch. As long as it's got the cores there, then it's all controlled through ESDS, ESDE. Or have I gone too far? All the Nintendo systems are under Nintendo. Again, I've clicked too many buttons. So you can see there's quite a few cores for the SNES, but it's this one here, just a standard SNES 9X. So we'll hit enter on that, download, install, done. Hit escape to quit out, and that's it done. So we've now got that core added and ready. And if we're going to add the systems, we would just go back to our file explorer, which I think I closed. And over here, I'd pick that folder, and on the right hand side, I'd find my SNES games, copy them across, and then you either close and relaunch this, or I believe there's a, I know there's an option here just to quickly, yeah, rescan ROM directory. So you do this, and it will do effectively the same as it does when you close and reopen it. Or of course you can just go down and you could quit and relaunch it and it will do the same again. So that's kind of, like I say, that's it. That's how easy it is to add systems and get up and running. The only, I guess, the more complex bits come, like I say, if you're not using RetroArch as the emulator, which for, like I say, about 80-90% of the systems, yeah, you probably are using RetroArch. But for the others, like I say, you just need to kind of, whatever emulator you choose to run, just make you set it up separately outside of ESDE first, make sure it's working, and then add your games in here, and it should all just work. So as you know, example, actually, if we go to PSP folder here, open up the text file. So for the PSP, here's all the file formats I support, and actually the default one here is actually the PPSP core for RetroArch. So you could use that. I mean, it works perfectly fine. I just find, you know, depending on what system you've got, I find the external one does work a bit better. So, like I say, they've got the alternatively here. You can launch the PPSSP emulator, and again, that you go and grab. I think that one is on the Play Store. If not, you can go straight to the website and download it. But I'd recommend download it, run this up first. Point it at that ROM's PSP folder to make sure it's got permissions, you know, file permissions to it, and when you do that, it should prompt you when you first set it up, and then basically make sure the game appears inside that external emulator. Make sure, probably run it once, make sure it runs okay. Once you're happy it's running, you can close it, close the emulator, then come back to ESDE, add PSP as a system, get it to scan the games, get it to scan the artwork as we've just done, and then launch a game, and it should then just go and launch the game for you. So I guess the only other thing is, so alternative emulators. So for Mega Drive, you see it defaults to this. So like I say, if you want to use one of these other ones, you know, again, this one does have a standalone, which is the md.mu. You select this, now you've changed it. So now for Mega Drive, it's going to use that alternative emulator. It's not going to use RetroArch anymore. You want to change it back, come up here and just click select on that, and it change it back. And likewise, you can change to any of these. So if you're doing the PSP one, by default in here you would have two. You'd have the PPSSPP core as the default, and then you have another one underneath it, which was the PPSSPP standalone. And then you basically pick the one you want it to use, and then it would then use that next time you try to launch a game. So like I say, there's a few more options in here, but might go through those in a separate separate video. That, I mean, most of them are quite straightforward about changing the volume and that kind of stuff, and when to and when not to play audio and that kind of stuff. Input device settings, it should, like I say, it should discover an auto setup your controller for you. It knows this is an Xbox controller. I've got the Xbox One hardwired controller on the PC. Game collection settings. So this is additional ones you can. So if I tick these and hit back and back again, see it now adds. Oh, it's playing videos now for some reason. I thought it played videos on this screen here. It does. It obviously just needed an exit and a relaunch to pick up the fact that it had the videos available. But yeah, so we've got all the videos there. But like I say, now I've added those other collections. We've got a collection called All Games. And obviously this will list all the games, not just the particular system. And then you've got favourite games. I've got nothing at the moment, but you can add. And then last played. Obviously we've got Sonic the Hedgehog that we played a minute ago, so it builds up a collection of last played. Obviously they're off by default, but you can turn them on. To favourite a game, you can see at the bottom there, you press Y to add something to a favourite. So Bubble and Squeak, if I hit Y, get a message at the top saying added to favourites. Now if I go down to my favourites, we've now got Bubble and Squeak as a favourite. And I think if you press Y again, it'll remove it. And there we go. So you hit the Y key just to add and remove. So yeah, like I say, as you add more systems, obviously this builds up and builds up. And that's it. I think that's kind of like the basics to get up and running. So like I say, just to recap, it's just a case of do a straight install, and you need to obviously set up your emulators separately to this. So in this case we did RetroArch, but like I say, long as those external emulators work, they can access the location of your ROMs fine, then yeah, there's no reason they won't work through here. But obviously this gives you the much nicer interface. So yeah, I think that's it. I think hopefully that was useful. Hopefully I didn't ramble on too long. It made sense. So any questions, let us know. But yeah, hope it was useful. And I'm going to be back making some more videos more regularly now. So I've had a bit of a break. Been busy with work and family, etc. But yeah, keen to get back and making more videos for you guys, covering everything really. Is the idea. Obviously, maybe some more videos on ESDE, maybe the Windows version. Launchbox I haven't done yet. Launchbox I'm keen to do, and basically to cover all bases. I find for me Launchbox, while I didn't necessarily use it to play games, I use it for organising my systems. So you can add all your games and ROMs to it, and quite easily and neatly sort of organise your games and work out what you've got and what ones are missing and that kind of stuff. So I'm keen to kind of put a build together for that. And then for those guys that were following my RetroBat and Batocera builds, obviously they kind of didn't come to a stop, but they kind of on pause for a bit. So I got reached a point where it got to a good point. We got a good number of systems added, but I think, as I've said on the Discord server, the aim always was to make a build that had every single system currently supported by RetroBat and Batocera. Obviously they're not full systems. If you had a full system, full ROM collection for every single system, it'll be gigs and gigs of data. It'll be massive. But the idea is to have a kind of a best of collection for each system, and that's still happening. That's happening in the background. I've teamed up with some other guys to help me because it's a big task. So there will be news on that very soon. Like I say, so that will kind of supersede those other builds. But to be honest, a lot of the games, they're obviously the same games for those systems. We're just adding more systems to it, putting it into a RetroBat build. And obviously we're working on RetroBat 5.3. Since then, RetroBat 6 has come out, so the build has been put together in 6, but we've been testing it. Want to make sure that it works out the box as much as possible. The idea is a community build for everyone. It's not like a lot of these builds, people build them, release them, and that's it. You've got no real way of getting in touch with them or having sort of feedback or suggestions or reporting stuff if it doesn't work. But the idea here is that I'll be demonstrating stuff through my YouTube channel, showing bits and pieces how it works, how to do certain things, updates when things are changed and updated or fixed, or a new version of RetroBat comes out and we update the build. So yeah, it's going to be like an ever evolving build. So it's not kind of just like a set and forget, and then over time it just becomes old and obsolete. It's going to be refreshed and kept up to date, new systems added, all that kind of stuff, improved all the time. So that's the idea of it. Like I say, it takes a long time to make sure that everything works. All these, obviously we can't test every single game, so there's thousands of games in it, but test a couple of games from each system to make sure they launch, make sure they play right, make sure the controls are right, all that kind of stuff. So, and obviously all the artwork. So yeah, keep an eye out for that. That'll be coming soon. Like I say, information on my Discord server. That's be kind of the main interface, the main where you can kind of request stuff or feedback stuff, or tell us when something's not working or broken, or suggest a oh, you missed this game. It's my favourite game. That should definitely be in there. And obviously we'll take that on board and add them in, and then the idea is to release kind of the main build, and then add to it like update packs you can apply, or separate packs for different pieces as new systems are added. But yeah, sorry, rambling on now. But so yeah, keep an eye out for that. If you haven't already, please subscribe. Like I say, you get notifications of new stuff coming out. And if you liked it, please like the video. Keep watching, and I'll see you on the next one.